Minority Leader Holbert.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we start off this every 2-year process of saying goodbye to members who have served. And I'll start by reading this tribute. We'll probably hear a few of these. The Senate of the Colorado Legislature convened in the second regular session of the 73rd General Assembly hereby extends our sincerest congratulations, commendation, and thanks to Jerry Sonnenberg, Senate District 1. Senator Sonnenberg was elected to serve in the 66th, 67th, 68th, 69th, 70th, 71st, 72nd, and 73rd General Assemblies, where he represented his fellow citizens with dedication and honor. During his tenure with the Senate, he served with distinction as the Senate President Pro Tem. He was also both the chair of the Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee and the vice chair of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Senator Sonnenberg served on the Appropriations and Capital Development Committees and further served on the Severance Tax and Federal Minimal Lease, Flood Disaster Study, and School Finance Interim Committees. He chaired the Water Resource Review Committee. The citizens of Colorado and the members of the Senate express gratitude for Senator Sonnenberg's exemplary service to the great state, our great state, and wish him well in his future endeavors. Given this 11th day of May, 2022, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, Steve Fenberg, President of the Senate. Members, please, we're going to have a lot of this, so please. Hi, Vonnie. I'm told you're watching. My favorite story about Jerry and Vonnie occurred on the trip to Israel. We got to go together. And when we were in a little town called Magdala, we visited a first century synagogue. And for hundreds of years, it was said that there were no first century synagogues because they couldn't find them. But then one day, a construction crew was scraping on the ground in Magdala, preparing to build a visitor's center, a dormitory for the Catholic Church, when there was a clank, and all of a sudden they found one. And under the mosaic floor of that first century synagogue was a coin dated just prior to that, which evidenced when it was built. And one of the hosts on the trip pointed out that while many of the things around us were replicas, there was a stone bowl sitting there at what was believed to be the entrance of the synagogue, where people would wash their hands before entering. And Vonnie and I huddled around that little bowl that had rainwater in it, like little kids, thinking, could it possibly be that we are dipping our hands now in the same basalt stone bowl where Christ washed his hands when he entered that very synagogue? Vonnie and I were like little kids. When we got back, we asked if there was any way to get a little bit of that rainwater, and a friend secured that and sent it to us. Another favorite memory came up just a few days ago, and I want to say up front, I don't mean any disrespect to the good county commissioner up in Fort Collins. But when Jerry and I served in the House together, there was a moment that was a bit tense down in the well. Jerry was standing up for what he believed to be right, and Senator John Kafalis was standing right up to Jerry. And they got nose to nose, sort of, in the well. But even after that bit of a dust-up, they were friends. And that's what I want to share most about my friend, the farmer, who's taught us about food, fiber, and fuel, told us the rest of the story, has been that farmer and friend, father and husband and grandfather and leader of his community, a future commissioner for his county. Jerry Sonnenberg fights for what he believes in. He stands for what he believes in. But he's one of the most pure gentlemen I've ever met. Jerry won't start a meal until everybody's seated. Jerry won't start a meal until grace is said. Even when the tie rule is suspended, Jerry will have a tie on. Senator Sonnenberg exemplifies what it is to be a senator, and prior to that, a representative. He is the one member of this body, for those of you out there who want term limits, we have them, and we've had for a long, long time. He's the only member of this General Assembly who is completing his 16th year, 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate. And I think it would be true if you could go back and ask all 100 of us who've been here during those 16 years that, like Representative, now Commissioner Kafalis, we might have had disagreement with Senator Sonnenberg from time to time. I remember one bill concerning rural Colorado that I didn't agree with you on, but it got 2/3 the vote in this chamber. But for those who have disagreed with Jerry, I think we would all agree that there was a handshake, there was a kind word, forgiveness if necessary, and that Jerry Sonnenberg would always be there to be your closest friend in a time of need. Senator, it's been my distinct honor to serve with you. I remember a time where I was frustrated in the House, and you came over on the side bench and talked to me and coached me a little bit. I remember, and I'm grateful. It's hard to say goodbye, but I just want to say thank you for 16 years of your life. Vonnie, thank you for lending him to us for these 16 years. For the 12 that I've served with him, you and I and Senator Scott, and just behind us, Senator Coram, over the past 12 years, half of the majority, half of the minority. There's not many of us over here on this side of the aisle who can say that, but Senator Sonnenberg, it's been my distinct honor to serve with you. I wish you the very best. I always thought, especially when we sat next to each other our first 2 years here, that we'd be running a primary against each other for Congress, but God had a different plan. God bless you, Jerry Sonnenberg. God bless the Sonnenberg family. God bless the constituents of Senate District 1 for sending this man, a dear friend, to represent you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you do a quick Google looking for the good senator, one of the first labels that pops up on that page is American Farmer. Pretty good. A pretty good two-word conclusion of I think what motivates and holds Senator Sonnenberg on his center line. What also holds him on his center line is his wife Vonnie and his 4 kids and his 4 grandkids, right? 4? 9 grandkids. I should know that better. I've always assumed that's why you keep the tractor on your desk, because it gives you that reminder of who's at home and the kiddos that are there. But you're young at heart as well. 2 stories, it'll be more than 2 by the time I walk away, but 2 that come to mind of the past 8 years. I think it was one of my very first committee hearings. It may have even been a SMART Act. And there was a cameraman And not Channel 9, not, just a guy with a camera in the corner of a committee room. Camera focused directly at me, and I was chit-chatting with my newly met Republican buddies, and I was saying, I can't believe that I have a tracker here. I'm just in the building, just figuring this out, and I have a tracker at one of my first committee meetings, and it's a bummer because I had, some feedback that I wanted to give on the mic. And Senator Sonnenberg goes, well, that's absurd. You're elected now. Like, you have a right to speak at the mic as much as anyone else does. And I was like, yeah, but they're specifically here to try to get me to trip up and record it. And Senator Sonnenberg admitted that he had never had a tracker, which makes sense. But he said, you deserve your chance at the mic. And he stood in front of me and blocked the camera from me and let me have my spiel. And then, without making a big deal of it, just went and sat down again. That was that. It was just the right thing to do. Didn't make a big deal of it. We didn't follow up on it. It was never mentioned again. He just stood in front of me. Let me speak at the mic because I was a senator and I had a right to share my 2 cents. That was a pretty neat way to start off, coming into this building after a pretty rough election where my impression was it was going to be Republicans and Democrats fighting at every turn of every corner. No, it wasn't going to be. It wasn't going to be that way. There was another, you knew I was going to bring this up. Later, I think it was the same year, there was an innocent comment made at the mic about eye candy. And immediately the building erupted, as the building can tend to do, of trying to create a headline and a story and a mailer and a tweet about something without actually never asking the 2 people who were involved in it how they felt. And so here it was, the building blew up for not just hours, but for days. It haunted us for the session, but we were fine. We were fine, right? We chatted about it. We said our apologies. We accepted apologies. And so while the politics were trying to spin it into Jerry versus Carrie, Jerry and Carrie were fine. But it was a good joke and still remains one. Because if you can't laugh at your mistakes in this building, it's hard to survive every day. Senator Sonnenberg has been a champion for so many things, and in 16 years, it's hard to summarize it in a speech at the well, because of course you're going to forget something. Hospital provider fee comes to mind. What a battle that was. And if it hadn't been for a champion like Senator Sonnenberg, I don't know if that would have gotten across the finish line. A good example of an elected official fighting for what he thought was best for his district, damn what anyone else thought, and damn what the lobby was going to put at him. He was President Pro Tem. He's always a leader to making sure Ag Day happens and that we take the appropriate time at the well to talk about what ranching and farming means to this state. Future Leader program that he, from what I've been told, almost single-handedly resuscitated to make sure that young ranchers and farmers across the state have a venue with which to connect and learn. Don't try to beat him on the rules. He knows them better than you. And you know why? Because last session, when we were all jokingly voting on a 3rd consideration, it was him who launched out of that back chair, ran down the aisle, and saved the entire floor from making a funny ha-ha mistake that would have had serious implications, because he knew the rules better than anyone else on that floor at that time. So now when we come up and say, don't vote no on 3rd reading consideration, it's because Senator Sonnenberg was the one that reminded us all of that a year ago. And then the obvious but important thing is how strong of a leader he has been for ag. An obvious role, but not a required one. There is no requirement of what you do when you come in this building. You get to choose how you hold yourself, what issues you champion, how you interact with your colleagues, where you spend your political capital when you sit down. But even though it would be clear that an American farmer should be the loudest and strongest advocate for ag, he didn't have to be, but he has been. Time and time again, from the smallest detail to the biggest issue, from looking in detail at a governor's appointment, to wading through bills that range in the hundreds of how that will land on the shoulders of ag. And then sharing those concerns loudly and quietly, continue to make sure that ag in every corner of the state, not just his dryland farmers, are protected and championed whenever he can. I think ag would look a lot different in this state right now without Senator Sonnenberg's voice in the Capitol. Because yes, we do talk to each other a lot, but without his voice, I think those conversations would have been different. And you've also made space for others to join you in those fights and those debates, which is important for a leader, to make space for others. In summary, when I think of Senator Sonnenberg and the work he's done, kind of four words that I scribbled down: schools, water, ag, fiscal responsibility. Pretty good legacy. I would say you might need to change your Wikipedia picture. You look a little young in it. And I think after 16 years, maybe a picture that reflects more of your wisdom, perhaps, would be a good move. But I don't think, of course, I hope many of you know that Senator Sonnenberg is concluding his service in the Capitol, but his service, community service, is not done. And I'm grateful to know that his voice will remain in an elected office. So I guess you're not really done serving. Maybe we're just doing a crop rotation. Thank you, Senator Sonnenberg. It has been a pleasure and an honor serving beside you.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Donovan, I would have never made that remark about the photo because he's going to talk about you later. So I would not have done that. 16 years. 16 years. It's amazing what can happen when the electorate doesn't have much of a choice, isn't it? I've known Jerry for 14, 15 years, something like that. You've heard this before. In the interest of saving time, I just instantly disliked him. But, you know, over the last 15 years, he's a lot like mold. He's actually been able to grow on me a little bit here. So, you know, but I am saddened to see the good senator from Nebraska leave this chamber. He has done a fantastic job in this chamber and the House. We all served together in the House, as Senator Hobart remarked. Senator Fields, I believe, was there also. But 16 years is quite a feat in today's world, and everybody knows about the Jerry Sonnenberg, the ag guy. And frankly, I'm tired of hearing that, because he is just a big advocate for rural health, for education, law enforcement, you name it. Jerry Sonnenberg is a guy out in the lead for rural Colorado. Whether you want to talk water, although he's a dryland farmer, just to let you know that. But But anyway, he is truly an honorable person. Jerry and I have grown I've grown very fond of him. I didn't think that could ever happen when I first met him, but he is a prince of a guy. Matter of fact, my wife and I were talking that I'm a little older than Jerry, and she was talking about pallbearers, and she said, well, what about Sonnenberg? And I sat there and I said, I think I'm going for cremation. He'd let me down again. So, anyway, he is a man among men in this chamber, and truly a very special person. And God has granted him a good life, a good family, and he will go on to be a leader in Colorado. And I'm very fortunate that I've been on the Ag Committee in my 12 years in this chamber, and Jerry Sonnenberg has been a guy that I've always loved and respect for what he does. Thank you, Senator.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I first met Jerry 16 years ago, and he did have competition 16 years ago. Yes, so they did have a choice. There was somebody running in Weld County against him who I threw my support behind. And but Jerry was speaking in Grover, if you ever want to know where that's at. It's about an hour and a half northeast of Greeley, at a house, and there was probably only 5 people there. That shows the dedication that he has, because he does that all over his district. Well, Grover, like I said, very small town, maybe 100 people, and he was speaking at a residence there of some friends of mine, friends of his. And I went up with a county commissioner, drove an hour and a half just to go hear him. And after we left, we rode together, Commissioner and I. After we left, I was stunned. And I go, wow, that dirt farmer from Sterling is pretty darn smart. And, not that farmers can't be smart, but we are talking Jerry. So it was like, wow, he's pretty darn smart. And he knows how to work a room, and he knows what to say, and he is very articulate. And this commissioner and I went home and thinking, whoa, did we kind of endorse the wrong guy? And we stuck with the guy that we endorsed, but let me just say this, I wasn't too upset when Jerry won for his House seat. We've heard a lot about what people say about him, and it's so true. If you look in the dictionary for under senator, I think you're going to find his picture. Maybe the Wikipedia one, I don't know. But you're going to find his photo. If you look under gentleman senator, if you look at a strategic senator, if you look at a wise senator, whatever, you're going to see Jerry's picture there. When I first got elected, coming from Weld County, I thought I knew a little bit about water. Just a little bit. I think, hey, I'm not too dumb on that subject. But my first 4 years, I was on the Ag Committee, and Jerry was the chair. And I realized I didn't know anything about water. And because it's such a complicated issue, one that only lawyers and Jerry can figure out. And he was a mentor to me when it came to ag and water, and if I had a question, I went straight to Jerry and said, hey, Jerry, what is this? I don't get it. What does this do? What does that do? And he would talk in lawyer terms and in prior appropriation terms and everything else, and he had to draw me diagrams, and I really appreciated that because I have a much better understanding and knowledge of what the issues are with water now because of Jerry. One thing about Jerry, too, he decided he didn't want to be in leadership the last 2 years, which I respect him for, but he knows the rules with the best of us. He can recite that book like nobody's business. And he's also a strategist. So when it comes to strategy, I say, hey, Jerry, what do you think about this? Should we do this or should we not? And he always comes back with the best advice. And I can't think of a time I didn't follow it. There was one time he was the chair he was on capital development, and somebody went off and they asked me to come on it. And my very first meeting, Jerry nominated me for chair of capital development. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about capital development, and I don't know anything about the committee. Don't worry about it, he said, you'll do all right. And so I was elected chair of capital development my very first meeting. And once again, just like water, Jerry guided me through it and helped me through it, and I have a much better understanding of that whole process. Jerry is, I really consider Jerry the ultimate friend. He's generous. I mean, he gives Rockies tickets. He's an avid Rocky fan, and yet he gives tickets to his staff. He gives tickets to other people. I'll never forget one time a couple years ago. I mean, he always goes to opening day, and he ended up not going to opening day, and I somehow got tickets. I think it was from the former president who had them, and I told Jerry about that, and I thought he was going to punch me because he missed the opening day. He had a few choice words for me, but I told him I really enjoyed the game. It was a lot of fun. But he's very generous when it comes to things. Like I said, he'll give tickets to his staff. He takes his staff out to the stock show for lunch all the time. And I mean, he's a dear friend, not only to me, but I think to everybody in this chamber and to his constituents. You go out east in Sterling or out even beyond that, and there's not one person that doesn't know his name. They all know him. And because he travels his district, he goes, I don't know how many, 16 Lincoln Day dinners and parades, and he's always over in Greeley because his district comes up to about 3 miles east of Greeley. And he's always over in Greeley doing something with ag or the parades or whatever. So he's a worker, and he represents his district as best as anybody can. And I'm going to miss him. I kind of wish I'd have supported him 16 years ago, but we all entitled to one mistake. So appreciate it, Jerry, for everything you've done for me. Thanks.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I couldn't let this opportunity go by without describing the man and his legacy, and that would be to Senator Sonnenberg. And I served with the senator in the House, and then he left and he came over to the Senate, and I followed you. But during the course of your time here, I can tell you that I have always observed your work and your manner. And I would say that you are the ultimate image of what statesmanship looks like. You're a very noble man, the way I see you, and it expresses itself in so many ways down here. I think that you have a brilliant mind, and I have consulted you on many different topics, on things especially as it related to CDC. We serve on CDC together, and he has so much history as it relates to funding some of our capital projects. And when we go on tour together, we had an opportunity to spend 3 days sometimes kind of in this van where we travel around the state, and I was able to ask some questions. But what I can tell you is he's a man that always knows where he stands. He never wavers. He has these convictions as it relates to his constituents, as it relates to rural Colorado, as it relates to ag. When you see him, you should not be confused about what he stands for, because he tells those stories every time he's down here. And so it has given me a picture of what it's like to run a farm or to understand farming or all the ag issues and challenges that they face. You brought a picture for us, and especially for me, being in the city, what that's like. So I've grown a greater appreciation as it relates to making sure that the things that I do is reflective to have the diversity and making sure that we're not losing rural Colorado out of any policy decisions that we make. And I learned that from you. On the softer side, he's a family man. He loves his family. He loves being a father. He loves being a husband. He loves being a son. He loves and I had some opportunity to spend some time in Sterling. Everybody knows him, okay? Everybody knows him. And when we walked into that little cafe, he's the type of politician that's not invisible. He's very visible in his community and across his state. And he doesn't hide and he doesn't shrink as it relates to making sure that he's an advocate for his community. And the softer sides are some things that I've seen him do just this session when he championed that bill for Patients' Bill of Rights. And that comes from listening to his constituents about what it was like when we all were trying to navigate through COVID-19 and seeing that some folks were in those hospitals isolated, not able to have the connection that they needed with their loved one. That's who he is. I had an opportunity this session to run a bill with him. And this bill was to increase funding and access to child care. And somebody asked, well, how did that happen? Because I had to push away my fear and I had to ask you, would you do this? And he said, I'll think about it. I checked in again. I'm still thinking about it. And then the last time he said yes, because he understands the challenges that rural Colorado has as relates to providing equal access and opportunities for child care no matter what corner of the state that you live in. So I just want to say in closing, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for being tough, but yet being friendly. And thank you for your 16 years of service.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. You could talk about Jerry Sonnenberg in any number of contexts and use any number of adjectives to describe the incredibly effective, powerful man that he is. I will limit myself to three thoughts. The thoughts are exemplar, competitor, and mentor. When I was in the House, that was probably my first year in the House. So that's, 7 years ago? 8 years ago? My, how time flies. I had some business that I needed to tend to over here, and so I came over to sit down on the side and catch one of the then senators to chat about something. And Jerry Sonnenberg was in the well. Now, we all believe that we've got it right. We've got it right today. We've got it right tomorrow. We have it right always. And if we don't claim that which we have laid down, we're going to lose in some way. Well, that's not what Jerry Sonnenberg was talking about. He was standing down here saying, you know, colleagues, I made a mistake. I'm going to turn around, change directions, and acknowledge that mistake, and as a body, we're going to move forward together in a better way. That's a powerful thing. That's incredible strength to say, I don't have to win to win. And I saw that in the man, and I learned from him in that moment. A competitor. I don't know if you all know this, but Senate District 1 and Senate District 9, Senate District 9 is actually more conservative than Senate District 1. Now, Jerry wouldn't necessarily agree with you about that. We are always looking at who had the better vote count, who turned more people out, who got more votes, what did the ratios look like. So we've always kind of had this Republican competition going on, who's performing better in their district. We have kind of an informal news clipping thing that we do on a weekly basis to see what's going on. And dadgummit, every stinking week, Jerry Sonnenberg's name is in the news more than mine. And that's hard to do. And the man is a strategist, not only in this chamber, but in politics writ large, to the crop rotation comment. You know what? You can farm the fields of Colorado many, many ways. And Jerry Sonnenberg, I believe, has just farmed it in one simple little way in the General Assembly. I think there's at least one, probably two more important fields of Colorado, the political fields of Colorado, that this man will farm. And as a mentor, he doesn't press in, he doesn't say, hey, you learn this, know this is the best way to do it. But when you go to him and ask, what do you think? Doesn't matter what's going on in his life. He pauses and he says, well, let's think through what's involved. Here's what I believe might be beneficial. Here's something that were I in your shoes, I would consider. You know, politics is a tough business. A lot of it's luck, a lot of it's timing. You just walk into circumstances occasionally, whether you're the right person or not. Sometimes it's generous, sometimes it punishes you. And Jerry has always rolled with all of that, learned from all of that, and been able to and willing to hand on the benefit of all that he has learned. And so I will say exemplar, competitor, and mentor, and it would go without saying that Jerry is a friend to everyone, and so I kind of slipped the camel's nose under the tent flap into the friendship world because Jerry would not turn his back on any person, and he has always been a true friend to me. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Jerry Sonnenberg.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sonnenberg had asked me to do this remotely, but I refused because I knew we were going to be doing something here today. It's a little troubling because I took a piece of paper and I thought write down everything you can think of nice about Jerry. And I ended up with this blank piece of paper, and I was just like, man, this is not good. He's not going to be happy with me. This is, you know, it's really tough because we stand here after so many years. You just don't realize how fast it went by. It's just amazing. And then to understand that the next time anybody's ever going to talk about us, maybe, in this well is when it's a memorial. Oh boy. We get to miss that one. We don't have to worry about that one. It's been quite a ride. When I came in here 12 years ago, there was this farmer named Jerry Sonnenberg. Everybody started talking about Jerry Sonnenberg because I was from Western Colorado. Senator Quorum was from Colorado, or Western Colorado, and they said, he's our rural guy. I was like, okay, we'll go meet Jerry Sonnenberg. So we wander in there, and there he was, King Sonnenberg, as we teased him about. Ultimate farmer. So we were all put on the ag committee immediately. So we got to serve with him on the ag committee. And when you step in these doors, so many of us, it's hard to admit that we really have no idea what we're doing. We just don't know. We try to act like we know. And we're all stumbling around in the ag committee trying to figure out what the heck we're doing. Jerry's taking us to task and saying, listen, guys, you got to learn this stuff. If you need help, I'll help you walk through it. And he did. He was very patient. He would step us through some of the water laws that we just didn't know. We thought we knew some of them. Not even close. Anything to do with agriculture, he just knew. It was just instantaneous. He could give us an answer. And he really made us look really smart on ag committee, and that's really hard to do when it was made up of myself and Senator Quorum. It was difficult, but he did it. He pulled us through there. And if we got stuck, that was the thing I got impressed with the most. Because, you know, you're in this committee for the first few times of your life, you have no idea what's going on, everything's moving quickly, and you're thinking, holy mackerel, what am I supposed to, am I supposed to ask questions? What do I do? And he could sense when we were in trouble. And I can remember one specific hearing, I can't remember the bill, but he just took a recess and just gave us the finger and took us out, not that finger, but he gave us the finger, get out in the hallway. So we went out in the hallway and we kind of did a huddle, and he just said, I want you guys to breathe and think. Just calm down. This is not going to be that hard. You're going to be fine. And he just had a very calming effect on us. And we went back to work, and from that day forward, we just smoothly went through whatever we needed to get done. He and I had a blast on state affairs, and not many people can say that. When I was the chair and he was the vice chair, oh boy. We saw things that I can never get out of my brain. Yes, we did. But it's just everybody in this building, everybody around most of the state knows what that committee is. I mean, we all try to fake it, right? And we don't do a very good job of it, but we try. But we actually made it fun. The midnight hours that we spent together, believe it or not, we actually made some fun out of it, which was very difficult to do. Jerry Sonnenberg is a person. That's the thing I just will always carry away from this building. He was just solid. No matter if you had a disagreement, whatever the case might be. You might think he's upset with you. No, he really wasn't. He really wasn't. We'd sit down and chat about things and get it worked out. And he was just a calming effect, which I think is going to be so sad that this institution will lose in Jerry Sonnenberg. He's been a friend. He's been a mentor. Boy, am I going to miss you. I'm going to have to come up to Sterling and check out that big, ugly, flat spot you call, because we got mountains. The most fun we ever had one time was he and I were arguing about a cloud seeding bill. I forgot about this. This was funny. You know, he's just railing in ad committee about cloud seeding. And I'm like, I don't see a problem. You're just trying to steal our water from the clouds. You know, you could just get him riled up in a heartbeat. But we had a lot of fun. I'm going to miss you a lot. But we'll stay in touch. God bless you. God bless your family. Take care.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for allowing me just a minute to really give you my thoughts on Senator Sonnenberg. Not my real thoughts, but thoughts that we could say here on the mic. I knew Jerry and I would be fast friends when one of the first meetings where I heard him speak in front of a group, he managed to use both seein's how and fixin' to in the same sentence. And you probably remember that. And having spent a big part of my life in Kansas, I was like, I know I'm going to get along with this guy really, really well. So, Jerry, you've been not only a mentor to me, but also a friend. I hope that we continue to have our dinners together even when you're gone. You can make the trip down to Denver. I've really, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed spending time with you outside of all of this, outside of the mayhem. Thank you for taking a rookie legislator under your wing for a lot of the real basics, strategery, and helping with that. You've made a great impact, not only to myself, but to a lot of people here. Thank you for that. I know you'll enjoy time away from this building every bit as much as you enjoyed it here in the building. So thank you. Thanks, buddy.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. What to say about the senator from Sterling, Senator Sonnenberg, Jerry? First of all, Senator Sonnenberg and I were members of the same House class. There were, not in the same class, mind you, I was outclassed, but there were 26 members of our caucus and 13 of us were freshmen. So we learned everything about this business together. But Jerry already knew a lot. And I quickly came to rely on him for everything agriculture and rural in Colorado. I'm not going to tell all this story, Jerry, about why you know this. My moment of greatest admiration for Senator Sonnenberg came one night in the House when we were in the majority and he was in the chair and a certain motion got made from the other side. I can tell you that some other time. And I dropped my jaw and said, what's going to happen next? But Jerry knew that when in doubt and you're in the majority, you just pick up the gavel and say the committee will stand in recess, and that's what we did, and I wouldn't have had the presence of mind to do that. The very best in the chair, the most experienced, the most thoughtful, the best on his feet of anybody. And we have been here in this building together 14 of your 16 years. I took a sabbatical for a couple of years and then came back, and you were my senior here. I don't know what it will be like to be here without you. I said this about Senator Todd last year. The General Assembly will be the poorer for you not being here and for not having your kindness, your passion, your honesty and integrity, your willingness to vote for my water bill when nobody else would, just so I wouldn't get skunked. Stay away from water bills. Jerry, I'm going to miss you. I really don't know what it will be like to serve here without you, and the General Assembly has been richer for you being here, all of us, colleagues on both sides of the aisle, even when we disagreed with you. I do not want you to depart without thanking you for sponsoring Senate Bill 267 and getting the gap paved. That's a major part of rural Colorado, and I want to thank you for doing that. I voted for it, and others will sit down. It has made a world of difference. It was the right thing. It was a courageous thing. And it was right for your district and for the state of Colorado. I could go on and on about how much I admire you, how much I love you, and how much I'm going to miss you. I'll uncharacteristically stop there and say, good luck to you, Commissioner. Don't come around complaining about unfunded mandates, though. Although I know you will, and that'll be your job, and I expect to see you sitting there telling us that this would not have happened in prior General Assemblies. And if you don't do that, well, then you're not the man I think you are. But I know you will. That this is not something that a prior General Assembly would have done. The Commissioner will say so. Good luck. Thank you. Don't be a stranger. And I'll miss you.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. After hearing from several members of the caucus, I thought it would be important that the chair of the Senate Republican Women's Caucus get up and say a few words. No. Well, that too. Anyways, I too would like to thank Jerry for all of his years being here down at the Capitol. We heard he's a farmer, he's a leader, cheerleader for all of Colorado. He's a teacher, he's an expert on the rules, he's a strategist. The one thing I didn't hear is he's a softie. We all know it. Jer Bear is a softie. I can't tell you how many conversations I heard, just a few words of, between the good senator from Vail and the good senator from Sterling or Nebraska, whichever it is. But he's a softie, right? I thought that's what I heard, is that you refer to as Jer Bear. And he would, anytime anyone came up to Jer Bear at his desk to ask him questions or ask him about things or talk to him, even me, when I would turn around and say, what the heck are we doing that for? Or what's that about? He would stop what he was doing, buying cattle. And that booming laugh would come out. No one mentioned Senator from Sterling's booming laugh. He's got the best laugh of anyone in the chamber. And there are times when something's going on and, everybody's not really paying too much attention. All of a sudden you'll hear this big, huge, booming laugh, and it's the guy behind me, and it's the good senator from Sterling. I would just like to say thank you for one day in particular, because we don't have a long history of serving together as state senators, but my first year was last year, and about 6 weeks or so into it, I had a bill that was coming up on the floor on second readings that I am absolutely positively sure that the majority leader didn't think was going to get to the floor, but it did get to the floor, and it was about oil and gas in schools. And there was some things going on that were going to be happening on the floor, trying to figure out how to kill the bill without getting a vote on it. And I stood up and turned around and looked at the good senator from Sterling, and I said, I need your help. And I said, I need to know what to do. And how do I get this to a vote? And he's like, what do you want? And I said, I just want a vote. I want everybody on the record saying that they think it's okay to build new schools next to existing oil and gas facilities. And Jerry walked me through it every step of the way. He's like, well, here's the first thing you do. You go down, you do this, and you say this, and you do this. And I'm like, okay. So I go down and I do that. And pretty soon we're standing over here. And the next thing I know, we're standing in the well. And I'm like, now what do I do? And he's like, now you got to go do this. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, and then when this goes through, you're going to do this. And then you're going to have to get up and say this. And I'm like, okay. Pretty soon we've got 5 or 6 of us down here, and everybody's talking to me. And I'm looking at Jerry. And he goes, don't worry. Just get up. Tell them you're opposed to it. Tell your stuff all over again. We're going to get them on a vote. You're going to cow it. And I'm like, okay, well, I grew up on a dairy farm. And I need you to explain that to me. So he does. I make my comments. And I turn around to find out what I'm supposed to do next. And Jerry's gone. He'd left the room. I'm like, where the heck did Jerry go? I need him to get back here. And he had left for a few minutes, and other people were filling in and talking, and then the vote happens. And then he comes back, and I'm like, where were you? And he goes, well, I took care of it. And he tells me, here's what you need to do next. And it was the cow, and he had gone and gotten it prepared for me. So that was the day, I would say, one of my favorite days here, is because it was the day that I felt like I was really, truly part of the team. And you were the guy that did that. You were the guy that said, here's how you do stuff, and made me feel like I was part of this team called the Senate Republicans. And I greatly, greatly appreciate that. And so I think of you as a friend. I think of you as a mentor, as a teacher, all those other great things that people said. But I just want to remind you that in spite of that, and how much I think about you, and how great you are as a state senator, don't think for a moment that I'm not going to come back next year and remind you of all the crap that you have said about county commissioners. When you're a county commissioner. And when you're down here whining, I'll be the first person to point out to you at any point that you need to stop whining. Just because you're a county commissioner doesn't mean you get to whine about stuff. So just remember, I'm never going to forget all the stuff that you said about county commissioners, and I will remind you when you're in that job every chance I get. But I just want to say thank you. You really were a huge help. Thank you so much, and we're going to miss you. Love you too.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, since we're talking about what a softie Jerry is, just want to remind everybody about the time when he was not like that. When I was first elected 10 years ago, one of the memories that I have about my first year was a bill I was told will be a good, easy, fun bill. And we all know that's when you should run, right? I didn't learn that lesson yet. So we didn't used to have a state animal. And we brought a bill that was supposed to be fun for sheltered dogs and cats. Seems like an easy bill to be our state pet. Well, then Representative Sonnenberg really didn't like my bill. I had no idea what I was getting into. And it came up on the floor, and we ended up debating that thing longer than Medicaid expansion. So he really took me to task in my first, what was supposed to be easy bill, on the House floor. And After getting to work with him over the years and coming to the Senate, he said, I'm just a lot softer these days. We didn't fight much about bills, even if we disagreed, and we were able to work on many impactful policies, especially around early childhood education and childcare. But it's been an honor to get to work with you over the years, to get to go to Israel with you, and also to hear about your family. It's great to have you all here because he talks about you often, and some of his words of wisdom to me was never forget what's important. He talked about always making sure he never missed the baseball games, always prioritize his family, and how difficult these jobs can be because it really does consume everything. And so great to have you all here today. Wonderful to serve with you, Jerry. I'll miss you.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. We have this beautiful crystal for Senator Sonnenberg that acknowledges all his years of service. It's appropriate that we did this today when his family was here because when I think of Senator Sonnenberg, the first thing I think of is a family man and how much he loves and is dedicated to his family. Thank you for sharing him with us for these last 16 years. The state is better off because he was here. And the kids of Colorado also owe him a debt of gratitude because I have never seen someone shake down people so much as he does for the National Western Stock Show Junior Livestock Auction. All for a good cause, of course, but truly, Senator Sonnenberg, we will miss you. And we look forward to when you come back to the Capitol as the county commissioner to testify against one of the president's bills.
This flag of the state of Colorado is flown at the Colorado State Capitol in honor of Jerry Sonnenberg at the request of all of your friends in the Senate. Wishing you all the best in your next adventure. It has been an honor and privilege working with you. May 9, 2022, signed Cindy Warkwell, Secretary of the Senate. And now, members, please welcome, at one of his last times at the mic, Senator Jerry Sonnenberg.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please be seated. Who is this guy they have been talking about? I don't remember most of those stories, and my wife would tell you that's because that's God's way of allowing me to die with a clear conscience. With that said, I'm truly humbled. Your kind words and some of those stories that I had actually forgotten about, you start calculating 16 years down here, that's over a fourth of my life. It's truly time for me to go home. And I look forward to going home, spending more time watching little boys play baseball, little girls grow up and have programs and dances. Come here, sweetie. And being that grandpa. 9 grandkids, four kids. Life is good. If there's one thing I'd leave you with, a year from now, nobody will remember bills that I ran, policies that I've done, but they'll remember if I had integrity. I hope you will always remember me as one of those guys that was true to his word. That if I'd done wrong, I apologized, tried to make it right, and that I always told the truth. It truly has been a pleasure to serve with each and every one of you. I've learned from each and every one of you.
love you all to death. This truly has been the most humbling and greatest experience of my life to serve as a spokesperson for not only my district, but all of Colorado. Thank you. Love y'all.